Hello, 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 and welcome to Real Talk. I am Rochelle Marie Lawson, known as the Queen of Feeling Fabulous. I am the owner and founder of Blissful Living for You, and I have three esteemed panelists with me tonight, and we are going to have a really good dialogue. You know, this show is all about issues for us that are happening today in today's society that affect us women, and we have a gentleman with us tonight, first one, and we are welcoming him with that's closed arms, but with open arms, as well as our fabulous other panelist ladies. So I'm just going to quit the chat on my end and welcome the guests and welcome all of you. And here's the thing, if you like this show, please subscribe to the show and please share it with everyone that you know, love, and care about, and even people you don't like. Share it. Just share it, because the more we can have dialogue about the topics and the issues that we discuss on this show, the better it is for all of us. It's an open format, loving, compassionate. We respect everyone's opinions, and there's no judgment. It's just real talk about the issues that affect women today. And so I'm going to start with the first guest panelist, and that is Sylvia Scott. Sylvia, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Sylvia Scott. I live in Colorado. I'm the CEO of the Girls CEO Connection and the author of Realizing Your Vision, Your Toolkit for Success, Words of Wisdom for Young Female Entrepreneurs. I'm all about high school girls.
I love it, love it, love it. Thank you, Sylvia. And let's go with you, Maria Leonard Olson. Tell us about yourself.
I am an attorney in Washington, D.C. I'm an author of 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. I am a podcaster and a radio show host on public radio in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate you being here. And our distinguished, esteemed, very first gentleman on the show, Rodney, tell us about you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Rochelle, for having us and having me. My name is Rodney C. Burris, as you guys can see on the screen. I am the author of a Better Life, Better Decision-Making book called Get Off the Cycle and Run. It was #1 on Amazon for a few weeks. I am based in Baltimore, and I just help us experience better relationships by better experiencing ourselves. So I'm honored to be here.
Yay! So thank you. This is the panel for tonight, you all. So again, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the channel, and you'll get notifications of when we're airing. And just so you know, this show is going to be broadcast on National Public Radio. So woohoo! I don't want to say we're stepping into the big times, but we're definitely up leveling the things here.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to jump in because our time is very limited. And tonight's topic was actually climate of unity. But I want to meld in a little bit of a different topic as well, because this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so I'm going to ebb and flow like I do. I'm going to ebb and flow with regards to domestic violence awareness as well as the climate of unity. And so we all want to live in a healthy environment, yet most of us make compromises to enjoy the benefits of modern society. And some forms of pollution, we have more control over others. And what we're going to talk about a little bit is how much influence do citizens have over the quality of the environment that they live in? And also, what is our role in protecting the environment? But not only that, we're going to talk a little bit about domestic violence as well. So I'm going to open it up and start with you, Sylvia, with regards to the questions. Because it's Domestic Violence Month, I want to really kind of lead with that. And then we'll talk about the climate of the unity in our environment, so to speak. But with regards to domestic violence, you know, that is a silent thing that happens in our society. And not many people want to talk about it because, you know, if they're someone that is experiencing domestic violence, it's kind of like this hidden secret that if they disclose that they're experiencing that, they feel it brings shame to not only them, but also to their family and the person that may be the perpetrator. And I have been, let me put it this way. I was raised in a family where domestic violence occurred. And so I know how it affected me. I know how it affected my sibling, and I know how it affected my mom. And so I want to open up dialogue. And the first question I want to ask you, Sylvia, is with regards to domestic violence, what do you think us women and men can do to bring more awareness that this is actually something that happens in our society, even though we don't see it? It is something that happens in our society. How can we bring a more awareness to the fact that this is happening not only to just women, but to men as well?
We need to talk about it more. And I'm a victim of it. This is actually the first time anybody will have ever heard me say it in public, aside from my friends. And it happened years ago. I was I'm intelligent. It happened when I lived in a ski resort. It was horrible. It happened to friends of mine. It was when the police could have cared less. Oh, it's just, this and that. So I'm very well aware. I watched it. I actually see it. Someone now I'm not close to, but she's younger. People have tried to talk to her, and it's a brick wall. She's young. She's 24. She doesn't realize she's being abused. And I'm afraid it's going to get worse. And we were going to do an intervention and people backed out. And that's what I think people have got to realize. Don't back out of it. If you're going to do an intervention for somebody you love, get a professional to help you with it. You're not yelling at the person, but it needs to be brought out more in public. You need to talk to your family about it, your friends about it, and just have a conversation, because it's happening more and more, and it's younger girls. And boys and men, but yeah, they go into hiding. And I think too, we're going to see more coming out when we bring more women in, refugees coming in from other countries where it's been something they've grown up with. We're going to have to talk about it more to help them. And we look at these women coming from Afghanistan, we're going to have to be there, and we've got to talk about it more. And the police have got to know they can't push it under the rug.
I agree. What about you, Maria? What are your thoughts about how to bring more awareness in society to the fact that domestic violence is in every level of society?
Yes, it's very true. And I also was raised in a home where there was domestic violence, and my father was arrested for beating my mom. I jumped on his back as a 6-year-old to try to get him off of her. And I didn't know anyone whose father had been arrested. I just felt like a freak for most of my life. But I think with the Me Too movement, that a lot more has come to the forefront. The statistics, at least reported statistics, are that 1 in 4 American women will have been sexually assaulted in her lifetime, and 1 in 6 men. So you're right. It isn't just women who are being violated. And I think that now we are talking about it more. And as Sylvia said, there has to be more dialogue about it, because we don't need to suffer in silence. Right. There are many ways to get support. And I used to do domestic violence pro bono work as a lawyer. I found it really too emotional because I got too involved, and I could not countenance a woman going back to her abuser. And it just happens. It happens. Yeah. But I think most of the time it's because of fear. And we don't have to be governed by fear in today's society. There is help out there. There are social services organizations. I write about this in my book as well, 50 After 50, about how to escape from violence and sexual assault in your past. And if you don't deal with the traumas, any kind of trauma that you have in your life, it's like a beach ball. You're holding it underwater. It takes so much psychic energy, and it will pop up in unexpected ways when you're triggered by something that may be completely unrelated. So all of us, to be an effective friend, partner, coworker, whatever it is, you must deal with the trauma. And domestic violence is, of course, traumatizing. So if anyone is listening out there, I support you. I hope that you will get support and don't continue to suffer in silence. You don't
That's
have
I
to.
agree. I agree.
Yes.
What about you, Rodney, as a gentleman with us? A lot of times people think domestic violence is men on women, so to speak, but it actually happens men on men, women on men.
Yeah.
And so, what are your thoughts about how can we bring awareness to the forefront here so that we can start the healing process when it comes to domestic violence?
Yes. Thank you, Rochelle. So when I was 9 years old, we had railroad tracks near our home in between our church. You go over the tracks and it would bump the car. So one night after church, my car was particularly bumpy, and I thought that we went over the tracks. I felt it again. I thought we went back. I didn't know what was going on. I woke up. We weren't at home. We were back in front of the church, and my mom's friend, his name was Mr. Tommy, was trying to pull my mom through the car window. I was about 7 years old. I had two younger sisters. We were asleep in the car. He was yelling, and I felt so disempowered, right? I'm a frail little 7-year-old kid at this time. And I figured that if I told my mom that he was trying to hurt me, that would make her so mad that she would fight this bad guy off. I used to love this guy, right? Fast forward a few years later, a different gentleman, I'll respectfully leave him nameless. I found myself running similar to what Maria just shared. I found myself running from the front part of our home to the back part, breaking into the room to keep him from harming her. In my work, a lot of what I do now is about encouraging the self, particularly as it relates to self-love, right? So that we don't find ourselves in those situations. And so what my mom did, she removed us from Baltimore to Florida on the whim. And I grew up, I was in a city rescue mission and all this other kind of stuff. And it turned out great. But the beautiful thing about it is she just left. And so sometimes the fear of how do we land and what am I going to do and who do I know there? It may not be pretty. If we were on an actual bike and we just jumped off because it was out of control, we might get some scratches, right? Some elbows, some knees. But is that outcome better than if I stay on this tumbling metal situation, right? That's a major component of my book. And it came from real lived experiences with my mom. She encouraged me to share the story. I had no idea that this is what we'd be talking about today. And I'm honored to be here.
Wow, I can relate because I can relate to you, Maria, and I can relate to your story, Rodney, because I was that little kid. I'm the oldest in my family, and I was that little kid, and I would jump in, to try and help my mom because I was always afraid that something detrimental was going to happen to her because my dad was, he's a big dude.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I think my mom got the courage to leave. But I think a lot of times women don't see an outlook for themselves, right? Or men, they don't see an outlook. And so she left and got a divorce and they got remarried 5 years later. And I remember when that was happening. Now, I love my dad. I loved my dad with my heart and soul. But I didn't like when he got to be that type of person. And what they say is, just in my nursing background and all the psychology classes that I had to take, was that it's a learned behavior. Children are so impressionable, and we don't always realize the impressions we're leaving on our children. So when we react or respond a certain way, that's what we're teaching our children, how to react and respond in those same circumstances. And it wasn't until I realized that when I went back to when my parents were getting married, I told my grandmother, I said she shouldn't marry him. I love my dad, but they should not get back married because I knew his behavior had not changed. Lo and behold, they did. It was out of my control. But how you say the zebra, the zebra doesn't change stripes. You can paint the zebra, but when the water hits the zebra, the stripes will reappear. And that's eventually what happened. And then they eventually got divorced and stayed divorced. But it was like I couldn't understand why she would go back to someone that was, that type of way. Even though I love my dad, it was that type of way. And then I realized that it probably was a learned behavior that he had experienced. And my dad was a twin. So You know, it was probably a learned behavior that they had experienced growing up, and that's how they learned how to react or respond to when they were in stressful situations. He knew it wasn't right. He loved my mom with all his heart, but he just could not control that aspect. And so, with regards to that, I want to tap into the other thing with regards to it is I think a lot of people tend to think that domestic violence is physical abuse.
No.
It's also mental, emotional, sexual, all of that.
Yep.
And so I want to get you guys' take on with regards to the other aspects of not just physical abuse, but the other aspects. What do you think as people here, you know, the four of us in our society, what do you think that we can share with those looking and watching? We have a viewer and she's like right on, it's so true. What do you think that we can share with regards to the other aspects of domestic violence that's not even spoken about? And I'm going to start with you, Rodney, first.
Yes. So I have a 16-year-old daughter. And I remember recently we were having a conversation and she was like, well, Dad, with this boy, and I don't know about this one, it's such and such. And I felt myself get a little tense, like protective. And I tried to practice the stuff that Sylvia, Maria, like we lived this work, you know, Rochelle. And so I was like, remember your skills, right? So I kind of breathed and I took a moment. And then I had the most amazing Sylvia realization, right? And that was this right here. I said, baby, she was like, Dad, do you trust these boys? I said, Daddy doesn't have to trust any of the boys. And she was like, yeah. And she kind of knew that I meant I have to trust her. And I was like, I don't even have to trust you, baby. I have to teach you to trust yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you're with you all the time. If it's tethered to me, that's a attenuated umbilical cord type situation that's not actually manageable. It's not realistic. But if I teach you to pay attention to your heart, your feelings, where you have agency, where you have say-so, you always do. You can always choose. You can always opt. And so anyway, we've been having those kind of conversations for years at this point. And I would love for people in our positions to kind of share different aspects of that messaging so that people have it's already there, right? Instead of looking for it and feeling like I'm gonna be at a loss if it goes away, I have it. And you add to my experience, but you're not the totality of it. That's what I give my daughter, and that's what I would love to share.
Thank you. That was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What about you, Maria? What do you think that we can do to not only educate people our age, but the younger generation coming up as well? Because, you know, I love what Rodney said, because it touched a key point. When someone is in a relationship and they're young, they are in love.
That's right.
Right? They are in love. And there's nothing you can tell them about this person. Even though we're experienced, we can tell them they are in love. So they think that person might be doing that because they really love them and they really care about them, right? Maria, what would you say to anybody watching it today, young, old, our age, or older, so to speak? What would you say with regards to what we're talking about when it comes to just handling the situation of domestic violence, emotionally, mentally, sexually, and physically?
Right. Well, I would say that I have a daughter in her 20s, and they seem to be so much more aware of things like gaslighting and mansplaining and people putting down women. My daughter is an ardent feminist, and I love it. But I think my message to young people is that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent, number one.
No.
Number two, no one is responsible for your happiness but you. You can't get happiness from outside of yourself. For so many years, I was looking at outside affirmations as a barometer of my own self-worth. Like if there wasn't a guy telling me that I was all that, then I didn't feel good about myself until I turned 50 and I woke up and realized that I need to feel good about me. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of me. And I cannot possibly control what other people think of me. So my message is one of empowerment to younger women, that you do have the power. You are enough. Stop giving away your power. Stop thinking that you must be dependent on anyone. The paradigm is shifting with the new generation. Women can be the primary breadwinner. Women don't even have to be married. Like my daughter doesn't even know if she's ever going to get married. And it feels good to know that the younger generation seems to feel more empowered and they don't feel like the natural course is I have to get married, I have to have kids, I have to be the one making dinner. That's all a thing of the past.
Yes.
So I think that as we empower our younger generation to feel good about themselves, to take responsibility for their lives and their happiness, that maybe domestic violence will be reduced because people will realize that they don't have to give away their power. And they can realize that even not making a choice, like not leaving a bad situation, is a choice. If you don't do anything, you're making a choice.
Right.
You accept it. You're saying that it's okay for other people to treat you that way because we teach other people how to treat us by what we put up with. And I have cut out all toxic relationships, all negativity, all energy vampires. I surround myself with people who bring out the best in me. And if they're just negative, they don't have a role in my life anymore.
That's awesome.
I love it. I love it. Sylvia, what are your take? Because you do work with girls, and
Okay.
yeah, so give us your take on that as well.
All right. I agree with all of this. I want to add one thing. There are girls in this country that live in rural areas and small towns. They're not thinking the way the girls that we know. I mean, some of the ones that I know from Chicago, the suburbs, Southern California, a lot of these places, they don't know. It's different. And they've come from small schools, they're rural areas, and it's all different to them. And I've watched it with someone, and I think that her family's backed off and said, well, she'll figure it out. And if she sees it, and I thought, whoa, that is not you. They've seen where she's headed. They've seen what's going on. It's all emotional, and it's sick. It's hard. It hurts me. But I'm not there. I can't just, and I don't want to call her up and say, well, I know this and this and this. But I think that people need to be more supportive of the family, but get the girls to think outside of, there's a bigger world. That's what I believe. There's a bigger world and they can go off on their own. I did right out of college. I took off with my sister to Colorado. I was really very gutsy. But I was going to say, there's so much out there that they can grab a hold of. And that's what I want to start bringing out more and more, that no matter where you grew up, what your family was like, maybe you had a father that ran the family, that's fine. But think about yourself. What do you want? And just because there's this guy paying attention to you, that doesn't mean he's the best thing in the world. There's other people out there.
Right.
I agree. I think I think we're having very good conversation and very good dialogue about this. Now, I want to shift it a little bit because we're talking about, as from a woman's point of view and from the female perspective, which the show is all about. But, there are other individuals in our society that are experiencing this as well. And I think I just want to say it's okay to share that you are being abused mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, with someone that you're close to. Because the bottom line is, in reality, we can share all the information. We can try to pull that person out. And I've seen that done. And that person just goes back. But really, until the person gets the full awareness of what's happening to them, mind, body, spirit, and their well-being and how it's affecting their well-being, there really isn't anything we can do. But we can lead them and give them information and drop these little hints and subtle things to maybe awaken them, so to speak. But it is a very sticky subject, and it's hard to define what people think is right for them, so to speak. I've heard, well, you're just on the outside looking in, you don't know what goes on, and and it's like, yeah, but I know what's going on. I know you getting your behind whipped, or you're being verbally abused or emotionally abused. I can see that. But until that person is truly ready to step out, and we all had our stories, right? We shared. I think just to continue being in the face of them and in the forefront of their minds, and letting them know that we know you can't fool us. I think that helps to kind of nudge them forward until they realize there's an awakening that they need to take some better steps forward. So I think this is really, really good topic, and it's perfect for Domestic Violence Month. I just saw that I had that written down when I had the initial topic, but I think I'm going to stay here. Oh, and our time is coming. So this next question I want to throw out there is, we're kind of focused a little bit more on the physical abuse, but the mental abuse,
Yeah.
is
That's-
detrimental. And that's
Right.
something like you can see sometimes when people are physically abused. I mean, I was an emergency room trauma nurse for a long time, and you best believe I see men and women come in that had, been victims of the physical violence. But the mental and emotional stuff is something that's hidden. I'm going to just throw this out there, and whoever wants to take this question, please feel free to do so. But with regards to that aspect, because that's a silent, unseen aspect, what would be words of wisdom that you would share with the listeners and the viewers today, that will help them, you think, to bring some awakening that this actually might be happening to them and that they need to make a change in their life for the better? And whoever wants to take that question, feel free.
I would just say start thinking, really, how does that make you feel? Really, really deep down inside, does it hurt? Are you ashamed? Do you feel like you're not good enough? If that's what you're feeling, move on. Just go get some help. Go talk to somebody. Even if it's not a professional, if it's somebody at your church, your synagogue, your mosque, or a good friend, a parent, or somebody that you trust, talk it out, but realize if that is making you feel bad, that you're wrong and you feel guilty and that you just like want to hide, move on. It's okay. And then start talking it out.
Another thing I would suggest is boundary setting was really hard for me when I was younger. And a lot of times addiction, substance abuse plays a role in domestic violence, and for both the perpetrator and the victim, because someone who is abused might turn to drugs or alcohol to kind of numb out. And I now have 9 years sober, and I'm a very active member of AA and AlAnon. And one thing you might consider is AlAnon is not just for people who are in relationship with drug addicts and alcoholics. It's also for people who are in dysfunctional relationships. And probably all of us have at least one dysfunctional relationship in our families or friends circle. So now that so much is online, consider listening online to an Al-Anon meeting, because it's really about how to have healthy relationships and how to have proper boundaries with other people. So check out alanon.org and listen, and go to a few of them till you find the right fit of group of people that you feel comfortable with. And you don't have to share. You can just listen and see if you can relate to some of the feelings being expressed by other people who are being abused by the alcoholic, drug addict, or other narcissist, dysfunctional person in their home or friends group. And there are a lot of organizations now. So you can even just Google domestic violence or emotional abuse, and you'll find therapists who are adept and trained at helping you navigate this sort of relationship issue, or any kind of social services groups that can also help you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maria. Rodney.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So I was in an emotionally abusive, dysfunctional relationship for a lot of years. And I can honestly say that it feels so embarrassing, and also logically, I know it's empowering to say that, right? As a guy, it's embarrassing, right? But my truth was that I was in an emotionally dysfunctional relationship. So mine wasn't a physical abuse, right? And And I had all sorts of cues. Like I knew it, you know, like you got it until they see for themselves. Like I knew it, but I didn't know it. Like I didn't own the knowingness, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I had two major incidences that kind of drove it home for me. And unfortunately, they were like 4 years apart, right? I wish it was like back to back, like 1, 2. We were like 4 years apart, right? So the first one came, and I realized I had a friend of mine who said, you know, because I protected this person. It wasn't their fault. They didn't really know, and all of this stuff, right? All of the textbooks, that was me, right? And so I was telling my friend once again, like, man, it's like this, and I'm complaining. And he said, homie, he said, either this person is fully aware of what they're doing and they're not as weak as you're trying to make them out to be, or they are very weak and unawares, and because you keep getting abused, stepped on by them, you're actually a little bit weaker than they are. Now, I know language like weak and strength, right? That might be old-fashioned language. For me, it was a catalyst. I was very offended. I was very, very offended because he and I think highly of ourselves. But it's either one or the other, right? Either I'm covering behavior that I clearly see, or they are, and I'm under that, which I have to do some whole reevaluation stuff for Rodney. That was one. Then years later, another incident happened, and I realized that I was giving my happiness and sense of worth to them. And logically, we know this. Like, if you ask a fifth grader, should someone else make you happy, or should they were like, I should be happy? But knowing it and owning it are very, very different things, right? Just kind of like how Maria said that it took her until she just had a recent birthday not too long ago to really, really accept, like, my happiness is mine. That finally happened to me. And what I realized is I could change my dynamic with them without them changing. And that was such an empowering thing, because I can't change them, but I can change me.
Yes.
Right.
That was
Love it. We have one person that joined us a little late, and we're getting ready to go. So in a minute, I'm going to give you an opportunity to just say something positive, and we'll get you going in here next time, girl. But say something positive in like a minute and a minute and a half, because we got to wrap it up.
Well, listen, I'm sorry I'm late. I got my time zones mixed up. But I kept logging on too early. So from a little bit, I encourage everybody just to find their voice and to find that self-love within themselves. I'm a big advocate of the circle of me, and that's me understanding all of the wholeness of who I am and why that's important. And if somebody interjects something, am I going to allow that to take me to the left, or am I going to continue on in the circle of me? So hey, everybody.
Hey, thank you. I mean, you know what? Somebody else had time zone and they got on early too. But just going forward, everybody out there watching, this generally happens at 7 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll have to make sure to be more clear about that in the future. But again, I appreciate all of you being here with me tonight. And I'm sorry my co-host, Dr. Kim Brown Barber, couldn't be with us tonight. She's in the air traveling she's in the air. So we're sending her much love and safe travels. But again, to all of you, thank you so much. And I'm sorry, Jay.
Can you pronounce your name, Miss J?
It's Jan Mitra. The J is pronounced like a Y, so Y-A-N-M. So it's Jan Mitra.
Jan
Mitra.
Yes.
I was over here, Sylvia. I was over here trying my best. Like,
listen, you can cut. My nickname is JoJo, so it's a lot easier.
Jan Mitra, JoJo.
Beautiful name. So I was like, okay, I'm probably like Jay Mitra. Jan Mitra.
Yes.
So blessings. Thank you for joining us, even though you came in late.
That's all right.
Words of wisdom on us, and I do appreciate it. And so, to all of you fabulous panelists, again, anytime you want to be on this show, holla. You see something come out, jump in, because I do appreciate you. Hey, Irene, and since we are on a time limit because it is going to be on National Public Radio, I'm going to say thank you to all of you for being a panelist. You guys will get information about when the show is actually going to be on National Public Radio, and I will make sure you all get the link so you can listen to yourself.
Yes.
Like, have you ever heard yourself on the radio? Oh, what's gonna happen? And I'm sorry, I'm all like, I'm that energy person.
Congratulations,
So
Rochelle.
if you got
Rochelle, thank you. I'm so
Yeah.
glad we talked about this tonight.
Yes.
Thank
I am
you.
too, because it's a very important topic, and it's a hidden thing. You know what I mean? It's hidden in our society, and
Right.
you see people and they look fine, but they're going home and they having some struggles. So with that being said, I want to thank all of you, and this is the end of our show. I am Rochelle Marie Lawson, known as the Queen of Feeling Fabulous. You have been watching and listening to Real Talk. And again, if you like this show, please share it with everybody you love and care about, but also subscribe so you get advanced notification when we're having our next show. And until next time, everybody, I love you all. Have safety in this world today, because it's cray out there. And wishing you all peace, love, joy, happiness, health and well-being, of course, wellness, wisdom, and wealth. And until next time, goodbye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, Rochelle.